Hi everyone, welcome to a quick tutorial on using your controller in Dark Souls. So this was requested by someone, and I realised it was a really good idea because I think when I make these guides, I probably just assume that people know how to menu, and a lot of people probably don't know how to menu because they probably have better things to do with their lives than spend all their time trying to work stuff out on their own while playing Dark Souls. Every free minute they have. So, yeah, let's give it a go. So, I'm going to be using a PlayStation 4 controller, so a DualShock, but all these techniques will apply to a Xbox controller as well. So the first thing we're going to talk about is how to hold the controller. So I'm only going to do basic grips. I'm not going to do anything monstrous like the claw grip or anything. This is the standard position, so you would have your two thumbs on the analog sticks. You would switch your right thumb between the buttons and the analog stick, and you would switch your left thumb between the D-pad and the analog stick. Then your index finger would control the L1, R1, L2, R2 buttons for your actions and attacks and things. So the first thing, really the only technique that you need to know is that you're going to want to occasionally slide your index fingers over to the D-pad and these buttons, because this allows you to use the D-pad and the analog sticks at the same time, and you can also use the camera and your buttons at the same time. Okay, so this allows you to perform multiple actions simultaneously. So how are we going to do that? So the first and easiest thing is picking up an item. So if we go over to our inventory and we drop this, okay? So normally when we pick up an item, we would run up to it, stop, press X, pick it up, and then run on. Okay? Now that's fine. That's the standard way to do it. But sometimes you might misjudge how close you are to the item. You might be thinking about other things. And ideally, my recommendation is, if we slide our right index finger over onto the circle button, right, you can just hammer X and your character will pick it up as soon as they are able to, right? So we run up to the item and now I will press it, yeah? So just hammer X, you'll pick it up as soon as you can, and then you can run on. And that prevents, that means that you've got an absolute minimal amount of downtime. And it's a really easy way to practice bringing your index finger over onto the circle button, and then this still allows you to use your thumb to hit X. So the single most useful instance of this is when chatting to Shalqua. So when you run through the forest and the bandits chase you, if you run past Shalqua and hammer X to skip through her dialogue, the bandits will stop chasing you, but you will not break stride. So you're not stopping running, hammering X and standing talking to her, and then going back to a run. Yeah, you can do the whole thing while you run past her. So it means you've got maximum pace and maximum benefit. So the next easiest thing that we want to talk about, what's going to be the next easiest one? So it's going to be the camera, right? So so we can bring our index finger over to manage the circle button, and this frees our thumb up for the camera. And this means that we can run while we manipulate the camera separately. Okay, and the reason we might want to do this is, one, like ONS for example, we can hold the camera in place so that we can see behind us while we run. Two, navigating tight corners. So for example, the bridge into Blighttown through Valley of the Drakes is actually, like you'll see here, if I just run forward and manage my camera, I get much better control than if I run forward and try to turn, because the camera's playing catch up. Yeah, so if here, for example, if I want to take the corner quite tight, I nudge the camera with my thumb, but I can keep running by moving my index finger onto the circle. So those are the two easiest initial uses. And the other one for the left thumb, so those are both right thumb. For the left thumb, we can just bring our finger over to manipulate our inventory while we move. Yeah, so this allows us to do weapon changes. It allows us to do like a quick switch while we drop, so that we don't get stuck landing at the bottom. It allows us to flip through our inventory while we move, so that we can get our bones out, etc., etc. So, so bring our fingers over. That's the most simple technique. Then we get into menuing. So a lot of the time you're going to want to, you've got downtime in Dark Souls where you can't do anything. So like on a ladder is the classic example, right? So on a ladder and going through a fog gate. And during that time, we can manipulate our menu. So we can come in, we can arrange our inventory. I don't think you can drop items on a ladder. I've never tried it. But, you know, opening doors, we can drop items and things. A lot of this is just remembering the sequence. So it's just remembering that, for example, go start right. So we would go start, R1, select, and then square to drop. And then ideally you want to probably go up because it's one click less. But I often go down, down, right, square, right. And that will get us through our inventory. So that seems reasonably obvious. The key is that we want to do this while we're on a ladder. So if we hit the ladder, we can then use our finger on the D-pad to remove all of our armor and gear while holding forward on the analog stick so that we continue to go up. And we could do the same thing, for example, not on a ladder, so that we can change our inventory while we continue to move. You couldn't menu and hold circle because the circle would bring you out of the menu. But yeah, that's kind of like the easiest way to do your menuing. So, for example, we can hold down, and that allows us to change our gear while we move. Yeah, and I think the final thing would probably be just to illustrate the door. But this is just learning. There's no special technique here. This is just learning where the items are. So a lot of it is memorizing sequences and understanding your way around the menus, and then just simply getting comfortable moving these over. Now, the one problem with this for me is I'm not particularly comfortable having my index fingers here and then using my middle fingers to do things like punch and block. So for me, it tends to be a compromise between blocking and attacking or manipulating my menu. I'm not very comfortable doing boss fights like this, so I'll tend to do boss fights in a more traditional position, and then if I need to manipulate my inventory, I'll come back up and then I'll go back again. I think that's probably something I could improve. There is a technique called the claw grip, which my understanding of the claw grip is basically you play like this, and this allows you to have the maximum number of fingers available to manipulate the controller. So you basically like put the controller down and then just lay your hands on top of it. So this lets you activate multiple buttons at the same time, but it's not great for the trigger buttons. What I think professional runners do for Dark Souls is generally, I say professional, they will tend to use a traditional grip for boss fights and then go into claw grip for the rest of the game to allow them to get good inventory manipulation. I've not gone that far. Yeah, I can't claw grip, but if you're interested, it may be worth looking at. So the only final thing I wanted to talk about quickly was quit outs. So we learning how to quit out in Dark Souls is probably the single most important thing you can do if you want to learn to speedrun, because it suddenly takes you from an experience of frustration and difficulty and backtracking and deaths to a position where you've got a really quick out no matter what circumstances you get in, and it saves you time, it gives you a chance to calm down in the menu. And all quit outs are is just exiting the game quickly. But you're often not going to have much time to quit out, so you need to be able to quit out quickly. The classic example of this is when I didn't want to load that one. The classic example of this is when you are going to try the juke skip. So with the juke skip, if you miss the juke skip, you have to be able to quit out before you land on the floor of the Duke's Archives and die, and that is the absolute best way to train your quit outs. Additionally, doing the rafters in Anor Londo, if you fall off the rafters, you want to be able to quit out before you hit the floor. So those are the two best examples. But additionally, doing stuff like if you're going to try and unlock the magic vendor in Lower Underberg and you get swamped by dogs, you just want to quit out. So to quit out, you just identify the fastest route. So start, left, X, up, X, left, X. So that's your fastest route to quit out. And then it's simply a matter of training that muscle memory so that you can do it as quickly as possible. It honestly doesn't take that long. Like, you could learn to do it in 2 minutes if you just practiced. And the great thing with practicing your quit out is you can do it over and over again, and then you just load back into the game. As opposed to if like you wanted to practice a skip, for example, you would need to mark your save file as read only, or you would need to have a save that you kept reloading so you could try the same thing. So there is a slight delay. So there's when you hit start, there's a little bit of a delay between the menu coming up. So for example, if I do start left, you'll see that it hasn't moved. So you have to have a little pause between the start and the left, but it's like, unless you're doing this very quickly, it shouldn't be too much of a problem to start. Yeah, so I think that's all I intended to cover. If you have any other questions or there's anything else you want to know about, please just leave a comment saying what you'd like to know more of, and I'm happy to make videos if they're useful for people, and it enables more people to get into playing this wonderful, wonderful game, ideally as quickly as possible. Thanks very much.